WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I'm JW Simmons, your host. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're bringing you information on topics and subjects that's important to you, to the community, and those around you. Today, we're talking about something that's critically important in the lives of children, and that's school resource officers. And we're fortunate to have with us today Chief Anthony Davis, City of Clinton. Chief, thank you for being with us. And Sergeant Donald Fisher, who's SRO for the City of Clinton, City Schools. Donald, thank you for being with us. And James Jones, who is a sergeant also with the Sampson County Schools, is a deputy sheriff here. And James, you got a lot of schools to look at, and both you guys have been on before. In fact, all of you have been on. I want to thank each and every one, not only for being here, but for what you do. It's a very intense job. It's a job that requires a lot of training. I want to kind of open it up a bit with that thought process. SROs, Chief, are something that you have known about, been involved in through your career. They require a lot of training, and we're not talking a few hours here and there. We're talking hundreds of hours. As a person that has been involved and school director with the community college as well, kind of give us your thoughts on that training process and how much is too much? I mean, how much training can you get before you hit overload?
Yeah, so during BLET, you're getting a small glimpse of training, the very basics of training. And as you go to your departments and you're assigned to that SRO position, then there's obviously some more additional training you got to do before you're actually certified to be an SRO. So the general public don't see the aspects of all the training and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes when these officers are getting certified to be in the school. But it is a pretty long process, and it is a lot of training that has to be done before the officer is actually assigned to that school.
And I think one of the things, James, when I look at you as a deputy sheriff here in the county and all the schools you're involved in, then I recognize that you're also affiliated as a director with the North Carolina Association of School Resource Officers. This is not just a local thing, but you guys get training it's kind of equal all over the state. Yes, I mean, the kinds of courses you take and the level of training you get. If you see another resource officer somewhere in your region, you know they've got a very similar background.
Yes, sir. The training is set out by the North Carolina Justice Academy, and it's the basic SRO program. The first requirement is for you to have your general certificate. So you can't just pull somebody straight out of BLET and throw them in a school. They have to have at least a year's experience. And then from there, then you'll have to take the 40-hour basic school resource officer course. That, with a 40-hour block, like where he said it was small blocks in BLET, the 40-hour basic course is also small blocks as far as with mental health, dealing with children with mental health, special needs, all the different types of things, small portions of things that you would see in a school in that 40-hour week. Then after completing that, then every year we also have an extra block of in-service training that every SRO has to take in the state in order to maintain their certification. Because anybody that works in a school over 20 hours a week for over a year has to have that certification within a year of going into the school.
Well, now, do you guys you not only go through the in-service for SROs, but there's also another 24-hour annual mandated set of courses just to have a badge and be a certified officer?
Yeah, we still have to go through the same in-service that our patrol officers or detectives or any other division within the agency goes through.
One of the things that interests me in this conversation as well is that, and we touched on it off air, but SROs are required to do all of these things. However, you look at some of the other divisions, you can get some training as a detective or something, but you're not mandated every year to go back through a lot of training.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about that in the sense of the why part of it. The why Is the why because this job is so critical, and the fact that you're dealing with adolescent behavior, and that's a whole different level of understanding of psychology?
I believe we got to be adaptive to the change, and in our policies and training, we got to be fluid, and we got to be have the ability to change with societal changes. So I think in that sense, that's why you have the yearly training, so that those updates and stuff can be brought forth and that additional training year to year.
And both you guys have come up through the ranks and done various other jobs, to include patrol, investigations, and all kinds of things. And this is almost like after you do that, then you're kind of comfortable doing the SRO thing. So my question then, and I'll start with you, Donald, is what interested you? What caused you to think this is something that I really kind of want to get into, being a school resource officer? I mean, I don't think I'm going to ask this question to him, but I'm looking at you. He didn't just tell you you're going to do this, I don't think.
No, sir. Being a school resource officer was interesting to me because it gave me a chance to do preventative work in the front end before, a student gets involved in gangs or, other illegal activity outside of school. It gave me and my other SROs an opportunity to engage them, show them the right way to do things, be a positive role model and a mentor to them.
Same question. What triggered that?
I was actually in the detectives before I transferred over to the SRO, and what really triggered me into going into the schools was I was about to have my first child, and some weeks back at when I was in the detectives, I'd spend more time at the office than I would at home. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be the father that was there at the ball games and be a family man. So that was one of the biggest things that triggered me to be there, as far as the work hours. They're mostly during the day, during the week, things like that. But then once I got into school, it was kind of the same thing, following on what he said. There was plenty of times where 16-year-olds back then, when you could charge them at 16 as an adult, I was charging 16-year-olds with felonies and things like that they had no idea would ruin their life, the rest of their life. Where then once I got into school, I used that as an opportunity to help them before they would get into trouble through counseling and mentoring and things like that, just like what he said. Yes, sir.
Is there a certain, I'm going to put it like this, is there a certain age that's better for SROs? Do you try to get somebody in that's younger, that's got more experience? Or, I mean, how does that work? And both you guys are supervisors, so do you kind of look out in the community of law enforcement people and say, that person might make a good SRO? Because obviously, Chief, this job, people are leaving every day. You got to replace them. So I want to kind of discuss that. How do you grow people, or how do you identify people?
I think from a leadership standpoint, I look for purpose. What is their purpose for wanting to go to the school? You just heard both of these gentlemen a little bit of their purpose. So identifying what the purpose is for actually going. It can't be just a job to go out and draw a paycheck, because you're going to be involved in so much stuff at the school you just don't realize. So for me as a leader, is identifying what that purpose is before you even identify them or put them out to the school system.
Donald, when you think about going into this year's school, 2023, 24 school year, what kind of challenge what is on your mind now? What are some of the things that you want to do, that you hope you can do, that you might be able to accomplish? That maybe you can not only share with the audience, but maybe we'll land somewhere with somebody that says, well, I might be willing to step up and be part of that.
With the Clinton City School System and Clinton PD, we have a great partnership, and they allow us to go into the classroom and provide life lessons and skills like that to help the juveniles these days make better decisions. I think that's the biggest issue, is some of our juveniles don't have the leadership or mentorship at home that they may need, and being there at the school every day, it gives me an opportunity and my other SROs to step in that role, help them make positive changes in their life and better decisions overall.
I'm going to segue to you, James, and we got about a minute and a half here before we got to go to break. So,
well, first and foremost, this year when we start school, it'll be unlike any year we've ever had because we'll be starting off at Sampson County Schools with a school resource officer in every building. So I'm hoping by starting at elementary school, we can start really building those relationships at elementary, and then it go to the next school, to the middle school, and then on to the high school. Because the biggest thing is, from when I first started, I worked all 4 schools down there in the Union District and kind of ping pong, just putting out fires, versus now the officers will actually be able to work the program the way it's supposed to be worked and take the time to learn the students at elementary and learn them through middle and learn them through high school. So that's what I'm looking forward to is for this year, because last year I said my goal was to see one in every school year. I had no idea that it would happen this school year. But,
and that's a huge plus.
Yes, sir. Yeah, between Sampson County Schools and the Sheriff's Office working together to get the grants funded and things like that, that's the only reason we're able to have one in every school this year.
Now, does the city and the county get together periodically, or do y'all communicate regularly about issues or things that are happening in the schools? Is that?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, because he'll have kids that'll come from his school to go to our school, or our school from the county schools go to the city schools. So we talk all the time, or I'll put him in contact with which SRO he needs to talk with. Yes,
I want to kind of dig into some of these observations that you have and see if what you can share that you can enlighten folks to be. Here's what I'm looking for, is to try to see what we can do as part of the community to help you better do what you do inside that school structure. And oftentimes people don't hear that. They'll hear a note from a teacher or something of that kind of thing. But oftentimes if there's things that are happening out there that you see that other people might not see, you say, look, if you could help us with this, it would be much appreciated. It'd be a little piece off of our plate. So we're going to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking about school resource officers, law enforcement in the schools, their role, job, and responsibility. Stay tuned.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up. And more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You don't have to move to have the home of the future. Star Communications is now offering all-in-one security and home control systems from Honeywell. Control lights, thermostat, locks, and your alarm all from one touchscreen or a tablet or smartphone. With Total Connect, you control your security system, home automation functions, and view live security video on your phone from anywhere. Sign up before August 31st and receive free basic installation, a savings of over $100. This is a limited time offer, so call now. Most aging adults want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And as your loved ones get older, you want to support them, even when you can't be there. Star is proud to offer Star Alert. This new system is now mobile and has GPS compatibility, so your loved ones can live their lives and you can have peace of mind, knowing they can get the help they need with just the simple push of a button. The new Star Alert also offers automatic fall detection, so help will be alerted even if they can't press the button. Call and ask about Star Alert today.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking about school resource officers. We're talking about law enforcement people in schools. We've got the Chief of Police, City of Clinton with us, Anthony Davis. Sergeant Donald Fisher is the SRO with the Clinton City Schools, and James Jones, who is a sergeant with the Sampson County Sheriff's Department. You got a big plane of schools out there that you look after, James. So thank all of you for being here. I want to kind of segue you a minute, Chief, and something I wanted to do some time back, but recently you got a state level job, should I say. You're part of an organization that was appointed as Police Chiefs Advisory Committee for North Carolina. You joined 12 other chiefs in the state representing small towns and big cities. And you're looking at things in developing training programs and things that you can do in the community. This is huge for the city of Clinton to have somebody like you stepping into that role to be able to contribute And apparently, you've already shown some things in the city of Clinton you're doing as a collaborator with the community.
Yes, it's been very beneficial so far. You know, you get to sit around a table with 12 extinguished police chiefs from all across the state. And like you said, some of them come from very large agencies to smaller agencies. So you're able to piggyback some of those ideas and bring some of that stuff back with you here to see how we can do training and our operations better here in Clinton.
And is that kind of segueing this idea that now we need to look at statewide to share information on the administrative level to see what's working in one community might work in another community, and even with the larger communities, I know there's got to be some of the larger police chiefs, I won't call names, in the state I've talked to, it's like they've got multiple small communities except it's in one jurisdictional area. You've got one community that may be the size of just population-wise, just one section of their town, but they want to do something like you're doing, and they're trying to figure out how to implement it.
Yeah, we give them those ideas. You know, inherently over the years, I think that law enforcement in general was one to hold their ideas and hold their data and keep it close to their chest, and you know, they wouldn't farm that stuff out to anybody else. But I think in today's generation and time that we need to be open and able to share ideas and share that information and give those ideas out to other agencies. And so far, it's been very beneficial for us.
I want to take that thought and the chief being on that state level advisory board. How does that work, James? And I'm going to go with you here with the association. How important is it with your role with the association to be able to work as a collaborative to learn from other officers in other parts of the state and other parts of this region?
Yeah, because that's the greatest thing about the conference. We were up in Concord this past July. So there was over 580 SROs at this conference. So by going there, you get to talk to people from all over the state and bounce ideas, what has worked for them, what hadn't worked for them. If you want to implement a new program, you can talk to somebody from the mountains all the way to Charlotte or Raleigh or everywhere. There's officers from all over the state that have tried things that worked, tried things that hadn't worked. So we all get the same training there. So somebody that's dealt with a situation on some of the type of training that we gave to the conference, they can have a better view of what happened because they actually experienced some of those same scenarios.
Donald, talking about this collaborative effort here, when you're at that school and here comes the children, here comes those buses in, here comes the cars in, they're unloading kids and so forth, and you're standing there at some observation point. I don't know whether you greet them at the door or how you do it. Different schools, I guess, do it different ways. What's going through your mind? What are you looking for? What is there something that triggers you when you see a certain thing or you see a child? Is there visual cues or things that concern you? Tell us about that feeling. I'm going to get your thoughts on both of your thoughts on that.
Well, I've been through some threat assessment classes and things like that, and you look for body language and maybe they want to say dress, but that's not necessarily the case nowadays. Kids dress all different ways now. But I make a point to look at our shift summaries from the night before and the day before, and I look for addresses that I know students live at, more specifically students that I'm going to see that day, and I make a point to try to see them students coming in, see if they're having a bad attitude or maybe feeling bad about what happened, and I'll speak to them before school even starts. I heard this happen. Is everything okay? Do you need anything? Need to talk to anybody? That kind of stuff. So most of the time it's body language. Every law enforcement officer, with any amount of time, you learn body language.
Some of the same skills you learn on the street.
Yeah, exactly. And so I mean, it's simple body cues that can kind of give away how someone's feeling that day. I mean, sometimes you're wrong, and sometimes they'll say, "No, I'm fine. It's just the way I walk," or something like that. But
same question to you, James.
Well, with every school, it's set up different ways, and some days you might be standing up there as they're getting out of the car with their parents. Some days you might be as they're coming off the bus, or you might be in the hallway where they're all kind of converging. But the biggest thing is like and when I'm instructing the classes, I tell every SRO, biggest thing is, the first thing in the morning is speak to the kids and be nice to them. I said, that might be the only nice comment they hear that day. And you never know what 1 or 2 words that you say to a student or even staff members, because even adults have bad days. You never know how much that could be impactful on that one person by just taking the time and speaking to them. And I get caught up all the time because for some reason, even when I'm off, I just have this come talk to me sign over me. And it gets my wife, she always rushes me all the time because I'm the talker between the two of us. And then she'll come up and we'll leave, and she'll ask me, she'll say, who's that? I say, I have no idea who that was. I just started talking to him. And you never know by just walking through Walmart how much just taking the time to have a conversation with somebody, how that could change their day and make it better. So I will do that in all parts of my life, whether I'm working or whether I'm off, because you never know what somebody's going through, because we can all be sitting here looking like we have everything held together right this minute, and our life being tore apart in our mind while we're sitting here. But somebody taking the time to just interacting with somebody can make all the world a difference. And it might open up where they start talking to you and telling you what's going on.
One of the things, Chief, I know that you've done here in the city, you're constantly doing events and programs in the communities and encouraging people to come out and interact. And in fact, recently it was in one of the local media. I saw you with a fishing pole beside a river. I didn't ever think I'd see that, but apparently it's working. Do you see overlap from the administration into what these guys do in your work as a police chief, literally, with kids in the community? And some of them, I don't know whether they've been fishing or not.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the fishing story, because that's one of our police camp. It's during police camp, and actually one of the kids, we were getting ready to go out to go fishing, and he looked at me. He said, "We're going fishing?" I said, "Yeah, we're going fishing today." He said, "Well, my daddy carried me one time." He said, "But it was a complete failure. So I hope we do better today." Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I think we do those. Policing has to be a shared concept between the police and the community, because there's so many aspects of policing that we would miss if the community is not willing to come forward and speak with us on that aspect. So the events, everything we do in the community is to share that concept and maintain the integrity of the department. And at the end of the day, we want to give the community something to be proud of.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because a lot of times folks don't understand that you're reaching out. And one of the things I wanted to try to get to today is they don't have to reach out far, because y'all are going to reach further to try to connect with them. And I see that in the programs with SROs. I see it with what you're doing in the city. How do we expand on that?
Yeah, because the biggest thing is following up on like what he was talking about. That's what SRO is every day, is community policing. The whole purpose of the program is to build rapport with the students, their families, as well as their school and their community. So having an SRO change every year, that is not what the program is set up for. The whole program is to put a person there, for them to stay, for everybody to know them, and it not be a revolving door of a person this year and then a new person next year. So it works out great if you have people that live in the school districts and you get them to start working there, because then they already know them. So like every day, a school resource officer is a walking community policeman, in my opinion.
I had a conversation a while back with some of the leadership in both schools, and we talked a bit about the parent-teacher organizations. Is that something SROs would like to see expanded on, and is that something you could connect with? Are those programs still available in the schools for you to connect with? Those organizations have been around for decades.
Yeah, our parent-teacher organization, they do like homecoming dances and stuff like that, and they try to raise money and do things for the staff as well, not just the students. I personally work hand in hand with our PTO whenever it comes to events that requires a security presence. But most of the time that's made up of the parents, and I'm not going to say that that we're not involved, but we're more involved strictly around the security aspect of it. They kind of want to do their own plans and give back to the school in their own way.
We're going to take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of those things that folks should expect from you guys, and more importantly, some of the things they probably maybe should not ask you to do, and to just be kind of frank with it, and as much as you can kind of set some expectation level, because I think if we don't, then sometimes we fail before we even start. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. We're talking about school resource officers. Well, this school year, 23 and 24, is an interesting school year, and something you need to be involved in. So we'll be back in a moment. Call a friend and stay tuned.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
105.7. 105.7. Tuning into Christian 105.7 is tuning in to a space of hope, encouragement, answers, and love. With the magic of radio or the convenience of the internet, Christian 105.7 is focused on sharing the universal truth and light of Christ with a local touch that creates that special feeling of community. More than just another broadcast station, we're your neighbors. Christian 105.7. What faith sounds like.
Welcome back, folks. We Should Know's on there. I'm JW Simmons, your host. We're talking with three people today: the Police Chief, City of Clinton, Anthony Davis; Sergeant Donald Fisher, School Resource Officer, City of Clinton; Sergeant Deputy James Jones as the School Resource Officer for Sampson County Schools. All of you have different perspectives on what school resource is, what things people need to do. What I want to get into is talk a bit about the expectation piece. What should one expect? And Chief, I'm going to kind of start with you from your perspective as an administrator, and Donald's doing his job. What is your expectation of him? What do you want to hear people say, well, you know, this guy did so and so and that was great? And then what do you not want to hear that you may hear, I wish he'd have done so and so? So I'm going to start with you to kind of set the tone for this.
I think the biggest thing for our SROs is they're engaged. They have to be engaged with the students. So are they walking the halls? Are they making those contacts with the students in the morning and the evenings? Are they involved in the administration at the school during trainings? So typically just being engaged in general is what I like to hear. On the flip side of that is, unfortunately, we got to be very careful when, you know, the complaints and stuff come in. Is, you know, are they realistic? Are those expectations realistic of the officer in the school? Because they may not know the ins and outs of what they're doing each and every day, and obviously they don't see what they're doing from day to day, and that can change. So, you know, when that stuff comes in, I look and see, you know, is it realistic? And we're able to get some training back on that, maybe, depending on what it is.
Absolutely, and I think, Donald, one of the things I'm thinking also is that parent that may feel like this is something you don't need to know, but it's something that's causing the child to, quote, have a bad day. What is that something you need to know, or where's the line that you want folks to say, well, I really didn't need to know whether they were going to wear a pink hat or a purple hat? I mean, but if that child is having some emotional break, do you need to know that? And how do they reach you? Do they call you? Do they talk to the principal? How do they do that? How does that process work?
I will say in Clinton City Schools, I've noticed parents do a good job at communicating with the schools, and the schools do a good job at communicating with the SROs. Yes, we do need to know if a child is going through an emotional situation, because our emotions affect our behavior. And our behavior is what can ultimately get us in trouble or help us figure out a situation. So knowing what students are going through is vital, because not only can we make sure, hey, you need to make sure you go check in with a guidance counselor. We can also go check with a guidance counselor ourselves and say, I'm just checking with you. Have you referred them to this resource or that resource? As law enforcement officers, there's multiple resources throughout the county and surrounding area that we know about that maybe other people don't. So us knowing a situation with a juvenile and being able to provide extra resources is key.
James, your perspective.
Yeah, as far as the resource officers, they work hand in hand with the guidance counselors, the school nurses, and they have a tight-knit relationship with those two entities, as well as the administration, because the bottom line is we're all on the same team and we're all working to make the youth better for tomorrow. That's what our whole goal of anybody in a school system is there to help and build the youth of tomorrow, because we want them to all come out and go out in society and be productive citizens. So with that being said, there's been plenty of times where the parents need to reach out to the guidance counselor or just let anybody know, because everybody there, it's like I tell kids all the time, there's no need for you to have to worry about to try to handle any of your problems, because you can't at your age, even though you may think you can. There's adults walking around all around the school that's here to help you with your problems, that has probably faced some of the same dilemmas that you're dealing with today. However, I think back when I was younger, I thought I was grown early and could handle everything, but as you get older, you realize that you always need help. Even you could be 40 or 50 years old and you still need help from somebody else to help you get through some sort of problem. So we just try to work side by side and work for the common goal to make them all productive citizens.
What's your perspectives? Do we need psychological counselors in every school? I mean, that's a question that's been asked multiple times. Anybody?
I know Clinton City Schools has a contract with a psychiatrist or whatnot. I'm not sure on the schedule how often they're there or whatnot. But I mean, some of our students, they do need that resource. They may not be able to get transportation, from home to a doctor's office or something like that, or counseling. So having that resource in the school, in my opinion, is beneficial, because the student can take 30 minutes of their day and go speak with that psychiatrist or counselor or whatever.
John?
It'd be my opinion, yes sir, that would be a great thing, especially coming off of COVID, where everybody was locked down and isolated to themselves. I ask all the time, are we ever going to get back to the way it was? And I think just the lockdown of COVID has changed our society for many years to come. And you see a lot more children now with mental health issues, I believe now, than we ever have in the past. Because even at elementary school levels, you'll have kids talking about suicide and things like that, where when I was 8 or 9 years old, I didn't worry about anything except when I was going to play. But the kids now, they take everything so serious, and every crisis is like a life-changing crisis in their opinion, whereas to us it's nothing. So whenever a kid does come with some sort of problems, you have to take everything seriously, because kids now, younger and younger, are becoming more advanced in life than we ever were. Because I say all the time, intermediate school, which is like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, that is like what middle school was when I came through, where middle school now is more like what high school was when I went through. So it is amazing.
What do you approach your job differently? Obviously, there's different schools that have different age groups, people. Is the expectation and things you face as an SRO in a high school versus an elementary school diametrically different kinds of things, or is it all kind of built around the emotional status of a child?
Well, the biggest thing is with a high school, you'll be dealing with semi-adult problems per se, whether it be drugs or mental health issues, where they can get their hands on more lethal means of committing those type, suicides. However, with elementary school, it's a lot of acting out and immature type things that you have to deal with also. So it's all the same, but a little different at every age level, I do believe.
We hear a lot about one of the key problems, one of the big issues in school is bullying. And it's so many ways that it can be done today. Is that still something that is really critically important for the schools here in the area? Are you seeing that? How do you address that? How does it come to your attention?
Bullying is still going to be an issue, and it's always going to be an issue, in my opinion. The thing now is there's so many different types of bullying. I mean, you have cyberbullying and stuff like that, and everything is put on the schools to kind of deal with bullying, in my opinion. Whereas cyberbullying can take place anywhere. It can take place when they're at home, because you have contact to the whole world from your cell phone, right? So, the schools are trying to deal with things that are happening outside of their control, but they have to address it, because ultimately them kids are going to come back in their building and see each other face to face. It's something I think is going to be challenging, and it's going to take time to figure out how to handle better, in my opinion.
Can you look at bullying and be able to pick out a situation by looking at a group of kids and say something's going on here and it looks like it may be a bullying issue? Is that something that you can actually do?
Well, sometimes you can. I mean, depending on if you see this kid that's happy every day, and then all of a sudden once they get around this one person, their total mood changes and they become kind of closed off and not very talkative, you can kind of tell that. But the biggest problem with like what we as law enforcement officers face is there's not just a law for bullying. We only really can do anything once it becomes an assault or a communicating threat where an actual law is broken, because we as resource officers are only there to enforce North Carolina state laws, whereas the school handles the disciplinary matters that comes from bullying and things like that, because that's the biggest challenge of it. And cyberbullying, there was a law against that, but there's so many aspects of it that they have to meet that it's really hard to actually charge it.
And I think one of the things that I'd like to do is kind of dig in a little bit on this whole bullying thing, particularly with the technology piece now, because kids now, 8, 9, 10 years old, got cell phones. It's probably more advanced than the one I got, and they live by the screen. And Anthony, I know you've probably seen it. When you're working the streets, you see people walking down the street, and they have no idea what's going on around them. They're focused on that screen.
Yes.
And I want to kind of dig into that a little bit. Is that something that you see? Are cell phones allowed in schools? Is that something that you see a kid get off of a bus and they don't even know where the mud hole is and they step in it? Is that really allowed? And what is our response to it? And we got about 30 seconds here for a break. I want to touch on that in our next segment. Then I want to talk about just kind of setting folks up so they can start thinking about what we're going to talk about, is this idea of training, particularly as it relates to major violence situations, that is guns in schools, the unilateral training you do with active shooter training. How does this training share as what you're doing on the state level with the training they get in Raleigh? Is it similar? Is it the same thing? Is the principles there? So when we come back, I want to talk about both of those issues, the technology piece and the advancements in technology, and also the training that is done with SROs statewide. Is it the same training? Is everybody on the same page? We'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned and call a friend. This is critical information you need to know and understand before an incident occurs in the schools.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Star's whole home Wi-Fi provides ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Star's whole home Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections. So you can connect tons of devices throughout your home. with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Star is always there to help you should any issues arise. Star's Whole Home Wi-Fi also comes with the Command IQ mobile app, putting you in control of your home network and making it easy to set up and connect devices, run network speed tests, pause Wi-Fi, and set parental controls all from the palm of your hand. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience. Contact Star today to get started.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We're coming to you from Star Communications TV Channel 16. We're simulcast on WCLN Radio right here in Clinton, North Carolina. We appreciate you being with us. We also want to encourage you to continue to send your commentary to weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. If you have a comment you want to drop it in the post office box, it's Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. Just send it to We Should Know or WSK, and that zip code is 28329. Look forward to hearing from you, your suggestions, comments, maybe questions about a show we've had. A lot of times I'll see you in the community and I get a question. Sometimes I can answer it, sometimes I can't, but I can certainly refer you to the people that knows. Today we're talking about SROs, school resource officers. We're talking about issues in the schools as schools are now in gear here in Sampson and Clinton and the surrounding counties. The training that you get, the kinds of things that you're involved in, the technology piece as it relates to children and their distraction. And one of the things that you mentioned, Donald, was the bullying piece with cyber. Our children today, and I use the word children to cover, you know, from kindergarten right on up to high school, are children today allowed to have cell phones or tablets in schools that they can actually, surf or play on or whatever? I mean, do you see them holding phones in their hand in the schools?
Well, in Clinton City schools, every student is provided a Chromebook to access online work and stuff like that. And it's got firewalls and different ways to protect what they can and can't go to. As far as the high school, there's a directive that cell phones are not to be seen from the time you enter the building until you leave the building, because they can be a distraction and they can lead to students meeting, you know, for a fight or meeting to do other activities that aren't appropriate. So at Clinton High School, we do not allow cell phones.
So same question to you, James. In the county schools, is there there's got to be cell phones there. I mean, it's like it's an attachment to their body. Yeah. So how is that regulated, or?
It's pretty much the same way. I mean, everybody knows they have them. However, they can't ring in class. They can't be out during class and things like that. Certain schools, I think, maybe might let them use them on their breaks or things like that. However, they cannot be a distraction during class. But, you know, following up on, like you said, the bullying, if you think back before cell phones were popular, you would get picked on while you were at school, but once you got home, you were in your safe place. Mm-hmm. But the problem now with cell phones is the kids can never get away because it's constantly coming to their cell phone. I mean, and as parents, we have to monitor our children and know what our children are doing on these phones, because if I go to bed and my son or daughter says, "Oh, good night," they could sit up on their cell phones till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, just talking to different people and things like that. So that's why, as a resource officer, I've always told parents how to lock their phones down where they can't receive calls after a certain time frame and things like that. So that the other problem that we have is once the students stay up all night like that, then they're dragging at school tomorrow, which leads to poor decision making that could make them make a bad decision that they wouldn't normally make if they were well rested.
Well, one of the things that interests me, Chief, is that when you look at that, what we're talking about here with technology, it not only reflects what's going on in the school, but in the larger community as well. I mean, you're literally, your job and the jobs of the officers that you have administration over is impacted by those phones, because every one of those phones is a camera. And it takes milliseconds to get a shot of, well, we didn't particularly like his facial expressions, but I got several shots and I've now put it on Facebook and it's out to 20 million people or something. Is that a challenge for law enforcement?
It is, and I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier about the being within the community, is building those relationships so that when these things pop up that may not look right or may not look realistic in their view, that we have that strong relationship to know we're doing the right thing.
This is, I think, critically important, particularly as we segue into the next conversation piece here, which is the training and something called active shooter training. And here's where a lot of folks have said, because I've had people come on and talk about the importance of guns and protection and that kind of thing, and always somebody looks back at me and say, well, why are you always blaming the gun? Why are you always blaming the gun? But 2022, according to statistics, was the school year that there was more than any other year of these violent acts, and a lot of them were involving firearms. Is there a specific program that you look at as prevention before we get into talking about what an active shooter training course looks like? Is there a specific program that you are aware of that talks about how do we prevent some of these gun situations showing up in school? I mean, I'm thinking in Virginia, we had the kid that went to school, 6 years old or whatever, and he ended up with a pistol and shot his teacher. Right. I mean, it's like the most bizarre thing you can imagine happens. Is there any way to prevent that?
Well, with anything, there's no way to prevent everything. However, first and foremost, the school resource officers, their biggest job of every day is to be a counselor. I mean, they do more counseling than they do any part of their job any day. It's just walking around talking to students and counseling them on how to handle problems and diffuse situations and things like that. But the biggest way to prevent anything is if you get any indication that there is some type of threat, you have to treat every threat as if it's going to happen, and you have to act on it. So just like, it's always easy to Monday morning quarterback something after it's happened, because hindsight's always 20/20. However, you have to act on whatever you hear as if it's going to really happen, even though more than likely a lot of them come out to be not credible. However, that one that you don't investigate or follow up on, that you don't think is not credible, could be the article that you're in the paper tomorrow. So as soon as we get any type of indication, report, tip, or from the anonymous tip line that we have, the Say Something app that the kids do, we start an investigation right then at the moment we're contacted. And we'll end up at houses in the middle of the night and things like that, and to ensure that the next school day will be safe.
Chief, this is something I know that as an administrator you've looked at closely. We've seen just in the past year the extreme kinds of things that's happening in school situations with shooters. We saw what happened down in Texas. We saw a police chief literally forced out of his job because officers didn't respond as deemed appropriate. He ended up, according to a lot of the media reports, standing in the hall while the kids were being killed, and all kinds of excuses and confusion going on, and nobody knew what was happening, but yet they had been through active shooter training. Tell us about active shooter training, not only as a police chief, but as an educator. Is this a valid course? Is it working in North Carolina? Do you feel comfortable that these guys are getting the level of training they need, both in practical sense and understanding?
That's a very important question, JW. Your response is not as good as your training. It can only be as good as your training program. So as we look across the state, I think we do a pretty good job across the state with our training programs when it comes to active shooter. And when you think of active threat or active shooter training, it's not just pertaining to the school system. It's any setting. It might be Walmart. It could be another shopping center. So that training could be any aspect of any building at any time. But active threat training is, I know how it's progressed since I've been in this business. I can remember doing training with plastic guns and doing diamond formations, and that's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
Where now, what we do with training now, we're using VR simulators and VR systems, and we're using simunitions, where we're able to induce that fear in that officer to see how they're going to react when they're walking down that hallway alone. And now we're teaching single and dual officer response, where if you're the single officer on the scene, you're going in that situation by yourself to eliminate that threat. And that's how it's evolved over the years. And currently we are going through a rewrite with basic law enforcement training, and that'll be coming up probably mid next year, where we'll see a little bit of changes in the active threat and active shooter training.
So there's a constant review. I mean, this is going on. We're kind of coming up to closing out here, so I want to get the most important thing, and I want to try to get this as I can in the last right here very quickly. Tell me the thing that concerns you most going into this school year.
Once again, it's being able to know when a student is having an emotional behavioral situation, because that can ultimately lead to violence or any other type of conflict within the school. So being able to recognize those and help those students as soon as possible.
James got about 30 seconds.
Okay, the most important thing I want people to realize going into this school year is that all the resource officers are there to help your children. They're just one phone call away. If there's anything going on at home, on during school, if you just reach out to us, we're there to help you. We're not there to charge your kids. We're there to help them and become productive citizens.
And that training that you have is the skill set that allows you to be able to quote yours to help these people.
Yes.
So if I kind of hear that throughout the theme of this, is that the word help underlined, and the faces I'm seeing here is synonymous.
Because we can't do anything about something we don't know.
Exactly.
We just have to be reported.
So speak up, and you're doing your friend a favor if they contact one of you guys.
Yes.
I want to thank each one of you for being here. Chief, thank you for being here. Donald, thank you for being here. And James, thank you for coming back. I try to do this every year because although we talk to superintendents, sometimes the people that's on the ground that see the kids every day is a critical part of what we do. So thank you for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again right here on We Should Know. Continue to let your friends know that this show is coming on Tuesdays. And I want to say to you, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.